Hi guys, Andy N, Spoken Label, back in the house on a Monday evening. It's not snowing here yet. It could do this week, so watch your space, but I believe it's dropping to -8 in England at the moment. Hopefully, where we are today, I'm over to America today, it's been a wonderful lady. Hopefully, I'm with Natalie Easton. Natalie, it's not snowing where you are today, is it?
No, and not yet. It hasn't, but it's weirdly warm. It's been very we're near the ocean, so it always is a bit warmer here than I would expect.
Oh, right, yeah, I suppose it does by the ocean. You can never tell. It's a bit very unpredictable straight away. Now, I'm here to talk to the wonderful
Yeah.
Natalie Easton today. Now, first of all, I want to give a quick shout out to our friend Elizabeth Horrand. Elizabeth put me in contact with Natalie because she's just bought a collection out on her new imprint, which I didn't know about this actually. Because initially I thought it was going to come out on, obviously, Elizabeth's other press, Burning Heart Press, but it's not. It's on Fence. Is that Femme Salve? Is that right? Have I pronounced that right?
Uh, Femme Salve.
Femme Salve, right? I know.
Femme Salve is how they
Yeah,
say
shit
it.
for brains already. So now, Natalie,
No, no,
obviously.
no. I would at first was the same way. I was like, how do you don't get that?
Good, good. I don't feel too guilty now then. Okay, Natalie, seriously. People who don't know you, obviously, tell us first of all then, a bit about your creativity. You told me off camera already. You've been writing for quite some time, haven't you? So tell us
Yeah.
about where your writing came from originally.
I mean, I've been honestly interested in writing and doing it I mean, ever since my earliest memories. I was always interested in storytelling as a child, but I always used to think I was going to be a novelist. I always thought that until
Hmm.
my my late 20s, honestly, was when I finally sort of gave up on that idea that, okay, I'm not a novelist, I'm a poet, and that's fine, that's good, that's just the way it's going to be. But I grew up convinced, because I would hear scary stories and then I would sort of respin them and tell them to my classmates and horrify them, all going up through school. That was kind of what I was known as, was the weird spooky kid, because I had undiagnosed ADHD all while growing
Oh,
up. So I was a
right.
bit of a character. And but the nice thing about ADHD is it does make you very, very creative. So I've basically been storytelling forever, but when I was 13, I had a wonderful English teacher who I thank at the end of my book, um, who encouraged me to embrace poetry. She convinced me that there was something to it for me. She felt like I had an aptitude for it, and she pushed me toward it. And there aren't words to convey how grateful I am to her for that, because it turned out to be such a refuge.
Yeah, I think poetry sometimes does come out in stressful moments sometimes. And I think your collection, which I want to come on to in a few minutes, is a really, really good example of it straight away with it. But before we do that, obviously, I know you've been writing for quite some time. I noticed that before when I was researching you, where you actually, a couple of things I want to touch base on first of all is you were nominated, weren't you, for a Pushcart Prize back in 2014. So tell us a bit
Yeah.
about that experience.
So uh, back around that time, I had a group of writer friends on DeviantArt who were really helping me sort of
Hmm.
shape my voice. Up until that point, my poetry was really aimless. It was a lot of sort of free floating imagery. I hadn't really settled into a narrative form. And my friends were trying to really help me, um, solidify who I wanted to be as a poet. I didn't know at the time that that was what was going to happen, or that they were going to be so instrumental to that, but it all sort of came together. And anyway, we would all look up places to submit to together, our poetry, as we were all poets. And
Hmm.
we ran across this place called Rust and Moth. And I submitted there, and to my surprise, not only did they publish me, they later on nominated me for a Pushcart. And
Wow.
it's so funny because I don't know if it still does, but the last time I was on their Duotrope page, they listed me as one of their favorite writers,
Oh,
and I'm just
whoa.
like, wow, that's amazing.
Whoa. Oh, that says it all, doesn't it, really? Like sometimes if they put you down. And I've known people friends of mine this
Yeah.
happened to where magazines have listed writers they really like and love submissions in the style of. And you sat there thinking, oh my God, it's me that. Yeah, I know you can play off. That's an astonishing
Yeah.
story. That straight away. Wow. Now,
Yeah. To think you could be anybody's favorite writer.
it's
You know,
incredible. It really
especially so
is.
obscure as I am.
Oh wow, excellent. Now, the other thing I want to touch on with you, obviously, I'd never ask actually, or very rarely, I should say, ask writers about who their favourite writers are. But if people research you, it's always mentioned in quite a few of your bios and some publications about Sharon Old. And if people really look around for you, they can
Yes.
find you on SoundCloud reading out one of Sharon Old's poems, which is absolutely incredible because it's so measured.
Mm.
And I think I can see where your influence from Sharon came from because one of my friends who's from Texas, actually, to Randy, I know he has Sharon Old as one of his favourite poets, actually. Like she's got that same sort of measured approach I can see in a lot of your work. So where did you find out about
Mm.
Sharon Old, first of all?
Well, first of all, that's so amazing of you to say because as much as I would love to feel like I had anything in common with Sharon, um, I would be amazed that anybody would see that influence, but flattered if so. I was really first exposed to Sharon Olds through a poet friend of mine
Hmm.
named Raquel. She sort of introduced me to her, and she left one of Sharon Olds' books here at my house by mistake and didn't get it back for a very long time. But then uh, but then I bought her collection Strike Sparks, and it's the only book of poetry that I've ever just sat down and read front to back like it was a novel, and I was just so absorbed in it. She's just so amazing and fearless, the way that she talks about the body and all the visceral and terrible things about the body and the intimacy of the body and things that I don't know if I'll ever be brave enough to say. And I was lucky enough actually back in 2014 when I was nominated for the Pushcart, right around that time I
Hmm.
met Sharon Olds in
Oh,
person.
whoa.
I ran into her at
Whoa.
academy, uh, Poets Academy reading in the city, New York City. I was just standing there and I was talking to another poet, and she looks behind me and she goes, "Oh my gosh, there's Sharon Olds, and she's talking to C.D. Wright." And I was like,
Whoa.
"What?" And
Whoa.
you don't want to be that person, you know, that comes fumbling up like an idiot. But I was like, I am never going to get this opportunity again to tell her how much her work means to me. So I was that jerk, and I walked up, and I was like, "I'm so sorry to interrupt. I just have to tell you both how much I love your work." And Sharon was just so gracious. You know, I was saying how novice I am at writing poetry and stuff, and she goes, "Well, we're all always still learning, aren't we?" And she was just so sweet. She was so sweet.
Oh,
She had to walk away because she got a phone call after a minute, but she was just so gracious, and it definitely wasn't one of those cases of never meet your heroes, you know, because you'll end up disappointed. She was more than I could have asked for. Just the nicest person.
wow.
So
Now, my favourite novelist is in New York, actually, Paul Auster, if you've heard of him. And he read in Manchester, and his last novel came out a couple of years ago. And I couldn't almost get the courage to actually go and watch him. I couldn't do it. You know what I mean? Like
yeah,
it's that common myth, isn't it? Where you think, well, you get told don't go meet your heroes, you're gonna get disappointed. Well, fantastic. You and that one, that there. Great stuff for that. So
yeah.
no, it's
It's
like I think
risky.
something like that, I think
Yeah,
it
it's
always
risky,
like
especially if you've had to go south before.
yeah, I can believe it completely. I've had that before with some musicians I really like. Well, I'm not going to name, but yeah, I know what you
Yeah.
mean. So, not
Yes.
obviously,
Okay.
but let's move on there, anyways. Now, obviously, if people wonder, obviously, we're really here
Yes.
to talk. We're really here to talk about your collection, aren't we? Your debut collection. I'll buy you a bird instead. Now, as we were talking about this on Bath Night before for a good 15 minutes, it's a difficult one for me to actually tell people about it at the beginning. So I'm going to have to ask you about this. Just take us right back to the beginning, and we'll start off with it. I think. Where did the title come from, first of all, then? Because it says to me it's a memory of some kind. But can you elaborate?
Yes. There is a poem in the book called The Bird Bribe. And it's about the period of time where my mother, who I was very close to, my mother and I were living in Illinois for a while. And it was really one of those defining moments or times, periods of time in my life, because I was, an older teenager, kind of getting ready to leave the nest, so to speak. And my mother was, she struggled a lot. She was bipolar and
Mm,
had severe depression all her life, and I witnessed so much of that. And anyway, so around this time when I was getting older and getting ready to leave the nest and everything, she really didn't want me to go. As much as it's healthy for the child to grow up and leave,
mm,
um, she she didn't really want me to go, and I was sort of afraid to leave her too. We were very sort of mutually codependent like that. And anyway, I at the time that all of this happened, I was sort of shut in for a long time after we first moved to Illinois. I was very sort of agoraphobic, I guess you could say, because directly before moving to Illinois, we'd had a domestic violence incident with my
oh,
mother's boyfriend.
oh
There's a
dear.
poem about that in the book as well.
Yeah, I was wondering about that, to be honest, straight away. Yeah, I know.
Yeah. And so we moved to Illinois, and I was very shut in. And the poem, The Bird Bride, talks about how I finally begged her to kind of help me get my stuff together, kind of pull everything together and get out of my shell and be normal again. And she took me shopping, and it seemed to be like an expression of I don't know what. It was almost like she didn't know what else to really do for me, but she always seemed to want to buy me things because she grew up having so very little. And I think it was something she felt like something tangible that she could do for me. So she brought me out to shop, and while we were out, we saw this beautiful red parrot. It was this female eclectus parrot, and I fell in love with it. And so then when I went to, I was getting ready to move out to leave. She
Hmm.
said to me, she tried to bribe me. She said, "If you stay, I'll buy you the bird instead." You know,
Oh,
so
right. Right, yeah, I understand now then, yeah, straight away. But it's the, yeah, it's the bond between the parents and children straight away. Which it is, if anyone will read this book, and I do, it is a recommendation as always, particularly here. It's a fantastic title. Now you explain the story to us straight away with that one. So, yeah, it's like, because as I said before to you, Mike, I got a really good quote that you put at the front of the book because you've got some great writers at the beginning of the book, put some really quite fantastic quotes on it. And a bit by Laura Cherry really struck me really hard on this. And do you mind if I read this bit out then, dear
sure, sure.
Natalie? Yeah, because Laura put on it, like, she mentions the words illness, healing, resentment, surprise, human regret. And if people read this book, a lot of the pieces in the book do have the themes. Sometimes in the one poem as well. It's incredible writing. It really is. For that one straight away. So I'm gonna have to ask you anyway because I'm not one for asking about direct pieces about poems, but I'm gonna out myself as well. I'm in that mood today. But people know me. My actual real name is Nicholson. So, and I jokingly tell people that Jack Nicholson's my uncle. He's not, right? But I found it amazing when I saw the poem called Jack Nicholson is a hypocrite. Now, where did this piece come from then?
You know what? I almost want to say I don't know because it was kind of unexpected, but I do
Mm,
know. When I was around 10, 11 years old,
mm,
um, I started manifesting the first, symptoms of the severe anxiety,
mm,
generalized anxiety, social anxiety, and everything else that I would carry with me, I'm sure, for the rest of my life. But I also developed really bad OCD around that time, and I didn't know what it was. I'd never heard of it. I didn't know it was a real thing. I thought it was just me. I was just weird and messed up somehow. And it wasn't until I saw the movie As Good as It Gets with Jack Nicholson,
mm.
um, and then I was like, oh my gosh, this guy does the things that I do. He counts things and he's germophobic, and um, so it really tied in with some of the younger memories that I include in my book, because it was something that my sister noticed about me and used to kind of make fun of me about, because she didn't understand that I wasn't just being weird. You know, it was actually an illness that I was dealing with. And so I just kind of utilized Jack Nicholson as his character from that movie, and had him sit down and talk to me about my sister and life as it is.
It's brilliant. It's brilliant. It's one of my favourite poems in the book, that one. Even though my uncle's in it. No, not really, but yeah. Now, I love them.
Yeah.
As the thing that stood before, Pete, what I said before about your similarity to Sharon Aldway is the preciseness in your work. And with Sharon, she's very, very good at finishing her poems off. And I found this throughout this book. I did. It's the preciseness in your words. And I also love the little sequences you had in the book as well. Now, I don't want to go for obviously touching off. There's three different sequences here, and I found more really interesting. Like with some of them, the poems actually followed each other straight after, but some were scattered quite throughout the book. So, just tell us about them. Two questions. This one really is, first of all, is writing a sequence is something that you normally do, and what drew you to the choices you made with this collection about the way it was laid out?
So the book is really laid out chronologically, and so basically everything that happens from beginning to end is told in the order that it really happened in real life. And while I was editing the book and pulling it together,
Mm,
um, I noticed a lot of connecting threads between certain
mm,
poems, you know, and I guess it's a little bit putting too fine a point on it, maybe to make them then sequences. Readers can see these things for themselves. But I just decided to, because those poems are scattered, they're not always sequential. um, I guess I just sort of wanted to uh, tie them together a little bit more in that way by making them sequences. It's not something I've ever done before. It's kind of funny because my friend Raquel
mm,
and I have always had a term that we use when we've read books of poetry together and stuff. We've often used the term book poem. We'll say
mm,
that something is a book poem, and it's because a lot of times when you read a collection, there are poems in there that maybe wouldn't necessarily fly on their own, or wouldn't necessarily be something that the poet would submit for publication on its own, but they're a
mm.
good book poem because they belong within the greater whole of the book. They fit like a puzzle piece. And so a lot of books, poems in this book rather, are probably book poems. and and so I guess that was just my way of tying it all into one larger piece. So like we have the Scarlet sequence, which is basically all about medical care, my mother taking care
Mm.
of me taking care of her. You see parallels between like mentions of a needle. um, and then you have the anthem poems, which are sort of the fatalistic, um, things are always going to be this way poems. Even the more positive poem, like my poem Return, which is full of sort of black humor. And then you have, of course, the couple of Illinois poems, which are um, they kind of take that image of the bird and they run with it, and as like sort of a metaphor for the whole relationship and everything that went along with it.
Yeah, it
I
does.
don't know if it's something I'll do again, but I might.
I was going to say, I've done a few books myself, and I do like doing sequences sometimes. I do. I think it's just the way it's way. It
Yeah.
depends on what the book is, the voice of the book is. Sometimes it works to devastating effect with straight away. It does. Now, I was listening to your live launch you did with Elizabeth Holland recently. I couldn't tune in because I was unfortunately I had a couple of stiff drinks that night, so I fell asleep by the time it came on at
Oh,
midnight
it was so
in
late
England.
your time.
Yeah,
Yeah, no
didn't make
worries.
it. Didn't
Yeah.
make it. I played it back before and now on YouTube, and it was fantastic. Listen, now what I found interesting about it was like this
Mm.
book's been coming for quite a while, hasn't it? Really, because you started writing this before your mother died, if I heard that correctly before. So,
Yeah. Yeah. I didn't realize that I was, but like back in
mm,
toward the end of her life, like maybe 2010,
mm,
2011, I was writing what I call snippets, the
mm,
little the lines and concepts that would become feature poems for the book. I didn't realize that I had a good handful of these in this one program I use called Scrivener to write in.
mm,
Um, it's basically Scrivener basically has like a bunch of sub documents within it, and so I'll write page after page. I'll just write like a snippet of this, a snippet of that, and then maybe I'll go through and see how they all fit together. And this was my first time doing that. And when I went through and I was looking at what subjects I had covered and kind of trying to see
mm.
parallels between them, what am I going to pull together in a poem? I realized I had 80 different snippets about my mother. Um, and this was right before she passed away in 2012. And so I suddenly realized, like, I think I'm writing a book. And it took several years to come together after that. It was just an enormous undertaking because I had never written anything like this before then. This book was really where my narrative voice kind of solidified itself and came together. I just was not writing poetry like this before this book.
Yeah, I think it's what you've done is there's an best way to sum it up to be. I love a Scottish singer songwriter called Paul Buchanan who used to sing the band called the Blue Nile. His debut album that came out in 2012 called Midair. He described it, and I think this sums you up to a T as well, where he basically was doing songs on another project, and this album kind of snuck up on him without him realizing. And I think that's that's happened here, really, for you. But the sound of things, it wasn't planned, was it at all? And I think you then realise, well, this needs writing, basically. And yeah, respect you. It shows because there's a love in this piece, this full book for your mum, basically. And obviously, to go with everything else, that love and everything else, all the emotions, and it's an incredibly complicated book, but no, it's relatable, I think. So respect to you for that. Now, obviously, we better talk about your story with your publishers in this one, hadn't you, as well, with Elizabeth Horan's Collect Press. Now, tell us about then how you got involved with this press then.
Um, uh, well, basically, I have a friend in the UK whose name is Kate Garrett, and
Oh,
she's
you
an
know
amazing
Kate.
poet.
Oh, you know Kate. Oh, I didn't know you knew
Yes,
Kate. Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
I've met Kate a couple of
yeah.
times. Yeah. Oh, she's incredible. Wow.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yes, she is.
Yeah.
I love her so much. Yeah. I don't even I'm trying to even remember now how I originally ran across her, but I think I just found her on Instagram and we became friendly and I ended up submitting to one of her publications, Three Drops from a Cauldron. And she is just an amazing, not just poet, but person all around because
Yeah. She's got real energy
she
about her,
has
Kate.
her
Yeah.
own,
Oh, yeah.
yeah,
She's got.
she has her own chronic illness issues and everything else that she struggles with, and you would never know it to look at her. I mean, she's an amazing mother. She has several children. She's always taking on these projects. She runs these publications. She writes her own poetry. She's very active on Instagram. She's just
Yeah.
amazing. And she had published a collection with Animal Heart Press, and I was kind of a little bit frustrated because
Hmm.
Bird was originally accepted for publication at a different press, and not their fault, but they were kind of struggling behind the scenes, and they fell through. And in my search for places that might be appropriate for the book, I was growing a little bit frustrated and weary, and I thought, well, I should look overseas, and I should really see what Kate has to say because she's put out multiple collections with different presses and stuff. I'll get her advice. And so through talking to her, I went to the Animal Heart Press website and then saw that they had an imprint called Femme Salve. And what Femme Salve does is it actually rescues books whose original contracts fell through. And I was like, this is a kismet. This could not be more perfect. This is one of the first places I'm looking. And after my book was withdrawn from the previous contract. And so it was like within 3 days of my book being withdrawn from the other press, that I had submitted to and been accepted to Femme Salve. It was just
Wow.
very quick and amazing. And they are just the nicest people, and they've just been so amazing to work with. It was literally everything that I never could have, even hoped to find, and just the best experience I could have asked for
Yeah,
with
no,
them.
definitely. You get someone like Elizabeth involved in it straight away. Yeah, I've said it before, and I'll say it again. She's a fantastic lady. Always a pleasure working with Elizabeth in the
Yeah, she
summer.
is. I
And
love her.
what she's done with this
Yeah.
collection, you also have seen the PDF. She's guided, obviously, brilliant. It's a fantastic collection. Now, obviously, I want to
Mm.
start wrapping up now. So I want to give you plenty of time to read out a few pieces for us today as well. Now, obviously, do you have any plans where you want to go next with your creativity? Anything else you can reveal?
Yeah. Yeah, actually, I'm really hoping to turn Bird into a full-length collection, and that's
Hmm.
a massive undertaking. It's like I feel like I'm chasing a worm, I've been digging in the garden and I found the end of the worm,
Yeah,
but
I
it's
think
slipping
the
through
saying
my
the saying they
hands.
use in England is he made a mountain out of a molehill. If you know what
Yeah,
I mean by
yeah,
that, yeah, yeah, no,
yeah.
straight away.
But like just unearthing this larger collection, this full-length work that I think Bird will ultimately be a part of is really just a massive undertaking. I mean, I put together all of my work that is just snippets right now. They're not even full poems. I put them all into a document just out of curiosity to see how much I had. And I had 240 pages of just,
Whoa, whoa!
yeah.
I'll definitely say that then.
And
Whoa,
most of that will never see the light of
good
day.
help!
Most, I would be horrified if after my death, God forbid, my name ever became known and somebody went back and looked at my work, because most of it is just it really reads like trash, because they're the loosest ideas and concepts and stuff that later become fleshed out and become more, but they literally sometimes they start off terrible. And if I learned anything in writing Bird, it's that you really can polish a turd.
Yeah, oh yeah. No, I've learned that myself. Like after 40 years of writing poetry, and I've done like 8 full-length
Yeah,
collections now. They took me what to 40 to find my voice of the first book, and 5 years to the second one. It takes time because like every project, doesn't it? Really, you
yeah,
need to like it. It's not
yeah.
something you can just pull out. Something. Obviously, we were talking about a young lady before. I'm going to name her Jessica Kim, who's obviously I met Elizabeth through last time I talked to one of Elizabeth's writers, and she just like both said before, just out of nowhere you're like me, and it took you time to find that voice. Yeah. Oh, good luck with it anyway, Natalie,
Yeah.
straight away with it. So come back on again if you get when it get the full length collections ready. Hopefully we'll
Oh
both
yeah,
hopefully we'll both be
definitely.
old
It would
enough to
be my
talk about
pleasure.
it. Now, obviously, to wrap up this part then,
Yeah.
if people want to find out more about you, first of all, where do you recommend they go?
You can find me on Instagram at all one word, Bird instead. Or I have a website, which is natalieeastonpoetry.com. And through there, you can purchase I'll Buy You a Bird Instead at the Femme Salve website, which is, it'll be available through multiple sites. You could get it through Barnes & Noble, Amazon, etc. But my preferred method would be for people to go direct to the website of Femme Salve and support the small press, because that's where they'll get the most benefit.
Yeah, I agree straight away. Fantastic people. Help them out, definitely. So, okay, well, let you pause the thought for a second now. I know you're going to do a few pieces in the second half. I'm looking forward to this. So, thank you very much, Natalie. Really enjoyed this today. We will see you all in, as I always say, 2 shakes of the dice.